Hey, Scott, ROCKFILE, back with another podcast review. I checked out the latest 4K edition of Starship Troopers. Let's talk about it. I mentioned in two previous podcasts that there are very few perfect movies. I think Starship Troopers is one, too. It's not a perfect adaptation of the novel, not even close. I got a buddy who really hates the movie because it took so many liberties with the novel. But as a movie, as an adaptation of something, I think they made something different and made a great thing that holds up today even better than it held up back then. Starship Troopers was filmed in 1996 and released in 1997. It didn't really catch on with the public. It had over a $100 million budget, only made $121 million at the time. In the long run, most critics and the public have agreed we were all wrong. Well, they were all wrong. I've always loved the movie. It's got great action. It's got this tongue-in-cheek fascism thing that's a satire that most people at the time thought was real, that we should be rooting for it. That was kind of the joke of the whole thing. That's why they showed it to be not a good thing for some of the kids. I mean, if you didn't pick up on that, you were a little dense at the time. But we were all a little more dense back in the 90s. I think the movie holds up great in many ways. There are some special effects things they've done in this film that we haven't topped. Some of the overwhelming amount of bugs on screen, people getting attacked by bugs, that kind of thing, from practical effects to some of the CG at the time. Over half of the $100 million budget for the film were effects. Over half of the budget was for effects. Sony was really afraid to greenlight this film, even when they aligned the script a little closer to the books. The biggest problem with the book is, well, it doesn't have that satirical content, and the armor that they wear becomes a big part of the whole plot of the thing. So they took that out. I read at the time why they did it. They couldn't. It physically couldn't be done. They built the armor and everything, this battle armor, because that's a big part of Starship Troopers, is they wear this armor. They basically almost worship this armor. But even with air conditioning in the armor, it just wasn't feasible to put that many people in that many things. It was harmful. It was dangerous. It was too hot. It couldn't, where they were filming it, it was just impossible. So they decided to excise the battle armor completely out of the entire story. Okay. That in making the change, they took it farther away from the book, but they made it possible to make the story. So I've never really had the biggest problem with it, but people who love the book are like, well, this is why it's a terrible version of Starship Troopers. I won't get into that argument. I came to the book about the time that I came to the movie. I had not read it. I'm a semi-Heinlein fan. So anyway, long story short, it's a good book. It's one of his better books. It is a great adaptation of my book because they made something different. I think all the actors do great. Even the kids, a lot of these folks, Casper Van Dien and Denise Richards and Dina Meyer, Jake Busey, they were all really young. Even Neil Patrick Harris, really young. Michael Ironside was one of the veterans in here, and he's also fabulous in this. There really isn't anything to complain about. The reason why I'm doing the podcast is this is a movie I've bought twice on 4K, and I don't like to admit that to people. I don't feel the need to upgrade if like an earlier 4K only had HDR and the new version has Dolby Vision, which is basically the difference between this and the old version. They Dolby-ized it. Some of the early Sony releases, some of the early releases from some of the other companies, they just weren't licensing Dolby Vision at the time or didn't get a Dolby Vision HDR grade on the film. Dolby Vision is not better in every single case of every single movie I've tried, but Dolby Vision, for the most part, is. Dolby Vision can get you closer, if it's encoded correctly by the filmmakers, closer to what the original intention was of the color timing and all that. Dolby Vision can do more than just regular HDR. HDR Plus and some of the others do well, but I found like going to a Dolby Cinema with Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos and all that, it's just an incredible movie experience. So I'm a fan not just of Dolby itself, but Dolby Vision 9 times out of 10 looks better than regular HDR and obviously better than standard definition stuff. So this was re-released in a new Steelbook. The original version came out in a Best Buy Steelbook. I bought it immediately because that was a movie I really wanted in 4K, and that Steelbook is going for a lot of money. Has a very utilitarian kind of design that looks like the satire of the entire movie on the cover of it. So they came out a few years ago with this new Dolby Vision regrade of the film. I would say they probably also cleaned it up a little bit more. It looks fantastic. And they did a new Steelbook. which has more of that cartoony artwork, that pop art style, which in some ways I like better. So I wasn't going to pick this up, but one day it dropped to like $15, and I'm like, well, just to see the difference. And my other version is in storage, so I'd have to watch a streaming copy if I wanted to pull the movie out anyway. It was one of those confluence of things that just like, hey, why not? Okay. And so it took a while, and it finally arrived, and I pulled it out the other night because I really didn't know what I wanted to watch, and man, was I blown away by the film all over again. Not talking about the video grade and the sound, just the film. It's just a great movie, and it moves quickly. It has a fast pace and tells a great story, and characters have arcs, and the special effects are mind-blowingly good. And then I'm watching going, it looks for its age, you know. There are a couple of extras. There's one major extra on this 4K that wasn't on some of the earliers that is a 25th anniversary conversation between everybody. And not everybody showed up, but there's a lot of people, and people kind of go in and out, and the core group of people talk about the film. Some of it's great, some of it's not, but it's nice to see them all get back together, even though this was obviously filmed during COVID and everybody was on, you know, their home cameras on laptops or worse. But I didn't buy it for the extras. I bought it really because A, I needed another hard copy of it, and B, I wanted to check out the Dolby Vision grade, and it is better. I remember this film, and it's not been too long ago that I watched my original version of it. It just didn't look this, and I don't want to say something like vibrant because you might think they've blown out the colors or anything. They haven't. But there were parts of it, like shiny things were shinier, bright things were brighter, dim things were dimmer. There was more details in the blacks, like when they're in the caves with all the little bugs coming out of the darkness and stuff. It just looked a whole lot better than the original, and it blows the original Blu-ray out of the water. Not even close. With higher resolution, a lot of films lose that magic you see in special effects. This is one movie that doesn't. You blow it up on a big screen in 4K with the HDR, and the special effects still look great. There was one or two things where, you know, two spaceships are colliding. You could tell they kind of put two pieces of film together. But other than that, like most of the creature effects, especially the practical effects, look spectacular in this new 4K edition. So it's going to sell out very soon. The reprint version is what I picked up. This original version came out a couple years ago. They have reprinted a lot of the steelbooks that were Best Buy exclusives, because Best Buy isn't selling movies anymore. Walmart has them. This was one that was available everywhere, though. Amazon had it, Target had it, etc. But it's now going out of print. I can tell because the prices are starting to rise on eBay and such, and some of the stores that I just mentioned don't have it anymore. So if you wanted to pick up Starship Troopers, you haven't picked it up in 4K yet, find this reprint of this modern steelbook. It's the more colorful, cartoony-looking one, not the white one that you won't see anywhere. I would pick it up because this is the best version of the movie. I guess they have re-released it in a standard 4K. I honestly just thought about that and didn't research it before I started talking. So I'll check that out, maybe put it in the comments below. Anyway, Starship Troopers, one of my favorite movies of all time. Yes, it is over-the-top violent. It's not everybody's cup of tea for that. Also, the satire is pretty thick. There's a little bit of nudity. There's a tiny little bit of sex. And a lot of violence, if it's not your cup of tea, but it's no more violent than your standard war movie, and it's really well done for what it is. Check out Starship Troopers in its latest 4K incarnation for the best it's ever looked and sounded. The Dolby Atmos is fantastic, by the way. There was some stuff in the upper channels. The pods coming out of the sky, some of the aerial creatures going overhead, some of the sounds, some of the shrapnel going overhead, all great overhead effects. This is a very dynamic sound. I really enjoyed the Dolby Atmos as much as I enjoyed the Dolby Vision. Check out Starship Troopers. It's available now in 4K. Get the newer Steelbook if you can. It's my favorite edition of it. What a great movie this is. Scott, I'm ROCKFILE. More podcasts are on the way. Links are below if you want to support the channel. Have a spectacular day.